Hey, how's it going? It's Brennan here. It's the middle of the night, so I have no lights. I just want everyone to understand that I want to work with all kinds of people, but if they put me in the spotlight, I'm just not going to respond because I think it's a scam. I think they're just trying to embarrass me. This is sort of my childhood psychology or sociology. That there was no easy answer. There wasn't. Not on the left-hand side of America where I couldn't find a place to hide. Okay, I would have done all the important things myself. I certainly positively would have done that and had a life. It's this is why there are all these crazy things because there are people like me and George Washington who don't have an automatic escape. So as soon as it becomes a public sort of question, I just freeze. Okay, when Ronald Reagan uh, had the sweet conspiracy of the candy tax, I froze. I didn't know what to do. There was absolutely no option. I couldn't, ask my big sister because I didn't have a big sister. And that's what all the lucky people have. Uh, and they generally don't have a father, a biological father figure, unless if they're sort of basically Jewish. That's the one, if you have like a European father or a hyper Jewish sort of European, especially, that's the one time when having a father works. Like Robin Williams, his father is an immigrant. Um, Ben Franklin, his father is an immigrant. He just hops on a boat and runs away. Even Huey Lewis, his mother is an immigrant, but his grandfather is the mayor of New York, so he automatically goes to boarding school. He's in the sweet spot. Okay, um, it's it's the full paradigm uh, or the parallel, something like that. Huey Lewis and Steven Spielberg. That come summertime, he just automatically goes to New York City to stay with his mother and his immigrant grandmother in that you know, um, old world type New York environment, which I know I've been to the East Coast and it's very different from the West Coast. So Huey Lewis um, gets to go to boarding school over there on the East Coast, not in California. So they kind of have a, I don't know how you exactly say it, but a paradigm symbiosis rather than a crisis. Okay, symbiosis is where the right people show up in the right place at the right time, and it creates a magic. Okay, the power of love. It's that, and okay, where you either get to go to the boarding school on the East Coast away from the West Coast, or you get to spend the summers on the East Coast away from the West Coast. If there's any escape, there was none for me. Okay, it just didn't exist. Um, when I was 13, I went to, I asked if I could go stay with my aunt and uncle for the summer, and I stayed, for 5 weeks. Okay, and that was it. It was basically a one-time thing. It was different. My degenerative habits of a young teenager. Okay, guess what those are. Um, I was amazed when after a month, I, I had still given up all my degenerative habits. Okay, when I was 12 and a half, 13, just teenagers nevertheless do desperate things. Okay, and I was pretty pleased that after a month of being there, I wasn't doing that. Okay, and it wasn't smoking. Okay, um, but by the next year, it definitely was also included smoking. Okay, because once you're actually a teenager, then yeah, smoking actually becomes a thing. And not necessarily cigarettes. Okay, that as well. Um, But yeah, I would have done it all by myself. And so when I'm asked this question, I just think, oh my God, these fuckers are heckling me. So I'm not going to really know how to respond. Privately, I would love it. You guys can say, yeah, we want to ask you the most embarrassing question of all. I say, cool, as long as it was private. But once it's on the World Wide Web, I just think these fuckers. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's if the whole world is aware of it, and I'm miserable, and I don't know what to do, and they're asking me to tell them, the secret handshake or something like that, and I actually don't know it. Okay, it was the most extreme case was this Polish guy. He'd come down, he'd be yelling at me, and he's screaming in Polish, and fucking get the fuck, he's a Nazi for one thing, and I don't speak Polish, and I didn't go to Poland. I didn't go anywhere near Poland. Berlin was pretty much a major mistake. I only went there because um, I met someone who took some interest in my scientific work, but he didn't really. When I went there to Berlin, it was a mistake. It was sort of, it was because I don't want to. I want to have a corporate interest so that there's some place where I can actually be completely isolated. I definitely, when I was in Berlin, I was just staying at hostels, and it was a nightmare. It was a major mistake, major. A volcano went off. When I went to the airport and used the Wi-Fi, I actually tweeted on Facebook. I said, "I'm going to Berlin now," and suddenly, I was looking at the boarding stations again. I was there at the airport. I was ready to go, and somehow I missed my flight. And I was watching the plane that was going to Spain. That's where I should have gone. Okay, not to Berlin. But I was confused. I didn't know. Okay, this is how badly I blew it. I thought Spain. I had never been to Spain at that point, and I had no idea what it would be like. Um, Whereas German, it's my ancestry, and we did go there, sort of to Switzerland and whatnot, with my parents, and with if you're riding around in the backseat of a car, it could be kind of nice, Switzerland and France and all that. But basically, I don't know. So when people put me on the spot, especially on the internet, and it's a global sort of awareness, so the whole world can be laughing at me, and I just don't want to respond. I just want to like, oh my God, this is a sheer scam. These people don't have any control over any of this. This is, so I'm freaked out because I would have done it all by myself. Instead, I wouldn't have ever gone on the internet. I did that because I figured that the press would communicate the urgency of what's going on. The police and the politicians and the college, none of them. They're all chasing paychecks or sort of disbelief. They're all incompetent people. Truly, that's basically police officers. Yes, exactly, and indeed, much of the military. Yes, schools, colleges is people who teach because they can't do. The people who can do are all expecting some fantasy perfection, some Thomas Jefferson lucky person. Okay, the guy who's got a big sister and has a spaceship. Okay, Jefferson spaceship. Yes, Jefferson airplane, whatever it is. Marries the babysitter and everything's hunky dory. Doesn't have to deal with the multicultural thing. He might deal with with the tame elements in the plantation, but I don't think he's passing the peace pipe out on the frontier. He just doesn't have to do that. Jim Morrison is doing that, and his father is literally leading the war, a full race war. Okay, that's what the Vietnam War is. That's the only reason we were there. The French would have fought their own fantasy over there if they wanted to do that. Okay, the French and the Chinese could have been dancing around in whatever delusions they want, but as soon as you involve the British and Irish Americans and stuff like that, you're expecting some chaotic delusion. And it's the same thing with Bobby Fischer and Ben Franklin. These guys need their sanctuary because they are highly qualified individuals, and if they knew what to do, the world would be perfect. But you only know that by having the right educational experience. It's Princess Diana. She could have gone to America to learn how to be an American. A Prairie Home Companion would have been the perfect place. I'm a witness to that, and same thing. Ben Franklin should have gone to Old World school to learn how to be that person. Okay, and George Washington as well. And not necessarily even going to a quote unquote school, but just having a happy home. Okay, whether that was with the king or with the producer, director, the scientific estate, not necessarily competing with students, but simply qualifying to be some keystone of ultimate outcomes, okay? And then to go travel the global sector once prepared, and I mean pair, as in two happy, truly compatible people working together and looking in a stereoscopic harmony, okay? And just the whole expletive thing will work perfectly like that. If you automatically care, if you ask me a question, I think you're heckling me, okay? Because that's all I know. But if I was actually there and you sort of write all these accusations out, I will love it, okay? And I will play that part. I will okay, by the morning, I'll have this dialed and you will be very happy, okay?